This is awesome. Oh! Early from Till. He floors Masvidal.
From losing 5 out of his last 6 fights to being straight up removed from the UFC fan rankings pool, Darren Till's done with the UFC. Yep, he's probably entering free agency soon, and as sad as it is, it looks like fans might not be seeing him enter a UFC octagon anytime soon. Till's last fight was in 2022 against the up-and-coming welterweight Dricus du Plessis, and he definitely had his moments in the bout. In fact, it was the best performance I'd seen from the guy in a long time. So why is it that I'm saying he might be entering free agency soon? I mean, he is still a big name in the MMA world, and even though he lost his last fight, he did win the fight of the night bonus. Wouldn't it make sense for the UFC to give him some more chances? Well, even though that's what I thought was gonna happen after the du Plessis fight, the signs fans are getting from the promotion are saying something else, and it's not looking good for Darren. But what signs could I have possibly seen that indicate fans might not be seeing any more of the English fighter?
Till immediately clinched him and gets a very nice takedown, but you can see the strength of Oliveira there. Easily reversed it.
Well, for one thing, he's been removed from the UFC fan rankings pool, and this only ever happens when a fighter's being released, retiring, or taking a break. Now, it doesn't look like Darren's taking any breaks from fighting as a whole. I mean, he's constantly out with Khamzat Chimaev training, but I think that it's a pretty reasonable assumption to make that the Gorilla's about to be dropped by the UFC soon.
Bad position for Darren Till right away.
And the big news about his removal was first delivered to everyone on Twitter. Yep, you know what I'm talking about. It was the famous MMA Twitter account, UFC Roster Watch, that tweeted out that Darren was off the roster. Still, I just went over how the Gorilla seemed to have improved in his last fight, and even though he lost, he did well enough to win the bonus. Plus, he's constantly in the news due to his friendship with Boers. So why on earth is the UFC thinking of removing him?
Very quickly to the back. Good job from Till from not letting him get to the back though. Gets right back up to his feet and then back.
Wouldn't it make more sense to keep him around a bit longer? Well, despite what anyone might think, Till's record hasn't been looking so great recently, and while I was definitely impressed by the heart he displayed in that last fight, the UFC is a business, and they have a bottom line they need to take care of. Personally, I believe Till still has a lot to offer, but think about it guys, has he really shown that he's worthy of being in the promotion lately? I don't think so. I mean, he's lost 5 of his last 6 fights, and the one fight he did win was against another guy who was 1-6 in his last 7 fights. Yep, now some of you might be put off by this, because even the greatest fighters sometimes get stuck in some nasty losing streaks, and no matter how badly Darren's been doing recently, he's an ex-title contender, and he took on Tyron Woodley back in 2018. Yep, the Gorilla was undefeated back then, and that fight really is what started his downfall.
Pull back right hand, pull back right hand.
Boom.
He's been looking for it the whole
right
time.
In the jaw, dropped him, cinched it up on his bicep.
And while it's possible he might make a comeback, the UFC can't keep waiting. Interestingly though, the last straw for his UFC career wasn't his own loss to du Plessis. No, it was actually Brendan Allen's remarkable win at UFC Vegas 70. Yep, this new welterweight contender put himself on the map and delivered an incredible performance.
Finish strong, yes, finish strong, finish strong, finish strong, we got 20 seconds.
He was up against another up-and-comer in the welterweight division, Andre Muniz. Now, while Muniz is one of the younger guys in the division, he was still ranked at number 11, and it wasn't like he was some rookie. No, he was a solid opponent, ranked higher than Darren Till, and Brendan beat him. He didn't just beat the guy either, no, he got a finish via submission, and it was definitely a dominant win. And with a win over a ranked guy like Muniz, you know that the UFC had to make some changes to the welterweight rankings. Muniz went down from 11 to 13, and Allen moved into the top 15 for the first time, obtaining the number 12 spot. Yep, this change in the ranking meant that someone had to be kicked out of the top 15, and it just so happened that the number 15 guy was Darren Till, so he got bumped from the rankings.
UFC.
And now I'm guessing it makes sense how Allen's win ended up being the last straw for Till and the UFC. Yeah, if Brendan had lost, maybe the Gorilla would have been able to stay at number 15, and the promotion would have kept him around, at least for another 1 or 2 fights.
Now these left hands are getting some force.
I mean, saying he's good.
But guys, considering that the promotion has been constantly waiting since 2018 for Darren to get back into form, I think it makes sense that they're making room for new blood. Guys like Allen, who have that drive and mentality. And honestly, now that Till's been bumped from the rankings, he doesn't really hold any value for the UFC.
Single leg as well. There's the left hook over the top again and a body kick.
Yeah, he's had some success already with a few of those right body kicks.
Still, no matter how much it makes sense from the promotion's perspective, no one was expecting that the man was going to get cut from the roster. And the fans definitely expressed their shock at the news as well. Most of this was done via tweets. Now, considering how big a deal this whole thing is, it makes perfect sense that it's got everyone riled up. I mean, even if Till wasn't being cut, news of him being bumped from top 15 would have been huge on its own. I mean, think about it. It's been ages since this man wasn't ranked in the welterweight division, and despite being number 15, he had and still has one of the most recognizable names in the division.
Oh! Stepping elbow! Beautiful work from Darren till he knows the finish is there. Oh, beautiful.
And because of the fact that he's got such a huge brand, the fans seem to think that the Gorilla's gonna be heading for some other promotion soon. Most of the speculation is around PFL, but I think Bellator is also definitely gonna want a piece of him.
On the chin.
There's a massive elbow there from Till. He's going up. It's a rally of punches here from Darren Till.
Now, just because he's probably done with the UFC, does that mean his career is over? Well, the fans don't seem to think so, and even some of the biggest welterweights recognize his potential. Yep, Leon Edwards and Khamzat Chimaev have both weighed in on Darren's situation, and both of these guys are linked to him somehow, so it makes sense for them to speak about it. Yeah, Boers is really good friends with the guy, and even though he hasn't directly talked about the potential release of his buddy, he definitely let the fans know that the Till they saw against Duplessis wasn't the best version of the man.
And so is Till, though. Till's just kind of poking at him with that jab.
Yeah, Khamzat talked about how Darren's got some really bad knees. So bad that he needs surgery. And that he's been fighting despite that. Plus, he said that if Till had spent longer training with him, he still would have been able to win. That's how much potential he has. And as far as Rocky's concerned, well, both he and Till are British fighters. And they've done a lot for MMA in their home country. Leon also spoke out after the Gorilla's latest defeat, and he mentioned how he thought the man was lost. And that he needed to find himself and try and regain some of his confidence so he could bring back some of what he has in 2018.
As he caterpillars his way through, but lovely work by Masvidal catching.
Combination.
I can definitely expect that wherever he goes now, Darren's gonna make things happen, and I'm hoping he can bounce back in a big way. That's it from my end on Darren Till being done with the UFC.